Sarah Johnson wiped away tears as she watched her golden retriever Max struggle to lift his head from his favorite spot on the living room carpet. The once energetic dog who used to greet her at the door with boundless enthusiasm now barely had the strength to wag his tail. For 3 weeks, Max had been getting progressively worse, and the Johnson family knew something was terribly wrong. Tom Johnson sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills and bank statements. His construction job had been reduced to part-time hours after the company lost several major contracts. Sarah's income from her part-time work at the local grocery store barely covered their basic expenses. Their 8-year-old daughter, Emma, and 6-year-old son, Jake, had no idea how dire their financial situation had become. "Mommy, why won't Max play fetch anymore?" Emma asked, kneeling beside the golden retriever and gently stroking his fur. Max had been Emma's constant companion since she was a toddler. They had grown up together, sharing countless adventures in the backyard and cozy movie nights on the couch. Sarah's heart broke as she watched her daughter's innocent concern. She had called 3 different veterinary clinics that morning, and each one quoted examination fees and potential treatment costs that made her stomach drop. The cheapest estimate was still more than their family could afford, especially with rent due next week and groceries running low. Max had started showing symptoms gradually. First, he stopped eating his favorite treats. Then he began sleeping more than usual and showed little interest in his daily walks. Over the past few days, he had developed a persistent cough and seemed to have difficulty breathing. Sarah noticed his gums looked pale, and his usual bright eyes appeared dull and tired. Tom joined his family in the living room, his shoulders heavy with the weight of impossible decisions. He had spent hours researching Max's symptoms online, and everything pointed to serious conditions that would require extensive veterinary care. Some websites mentioned heart problems, others suggested possible cancer, and a few indicated respiratory infections that could be treated if caught early enough. "We have to do something," Sarah whispered to Tom when the children were distracted. "Look at him. He's getting worse every day." Tom nodded, his jaw clenched with frustration. He had already called his brother to ask for a loan, but his brother's own family was struggling financially. Tom's parents lived on a fixed income and couldn't help. The couple had maxed out their credit cards months ago when Tom's hours were first reduced. Jake noticed his parents' worried expressions and climbed onto Tom's lap. "Is Max going to be okay, Daddy?" Tom struggled to find words that wouldn't frighten his son while still being honest. "We're going to do everything we can to help Max feel better, buddy." That evening, after the children were asleep, Sarah found herself researching low-cost veterinary options. She discovered a few animal welfare organizations that offered financial assistance, but their waiting lists were months long. Some required extensive paperwork and proof of income that would take weeks to process. Time was something Max didn't seem to have. Sarah remembered Dr. Martinez, the veterinarian who had treated Max as a puppy. The Riverside Animal Clinic had always been their go-to place for Max's routine checkups and vaccinations. Dr. Martinez had a reputation for being compassionate and understanding, but Sarah worried that even he would require payment up front for any serious treatment. The next morning, Max refused to eat his breakfast entirely. He lay motionless in his bed, his breathing shallow and labored. Emma sat beside him, reading him stories from her favorite books, convinced that her voice might help him feel better. Jake brought Max his favorite stuffed duck, placing it gently beside the ailing dog. Sarah watched her children's devotion to their beloved pet and felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let Max suffer without at least trying to get him help. Even if it meant facing embarrassment or rejection, she had to explore every possible option. She called the Riverside Animal Clinic and spoke with the receptionist, explaining their situation honestly. The receptionist was kind but explained that the clinic's policy required payment arrangements to be discussed before any treatment could begin. However, she did mention that Dr. Martinez sometimes made exceptions in special circumstances and suggested Sarah bring Max in for an evaluation. Tom took the afternoon off work, using one of his few remaining sick days. The family loaded Max carefully into their old sedan, with Emma and Jake sitting on either side of him in the back seat. Max's breathing had become more difficult, and Sarah noticed a slight blue tinge to his gums that made her stomach turn with worry. The drive to the clinic felt endless. Tom gripped the steering wheel tightly, praying silently that they would find a way to help Max. Sarah held Tom's free hand, both of them trying to stay strong for their children and their beloved dog. As they pulled into the parking lot of Riverside Animal Clinic, Sarah saw other families with their pets, and she wondered if any of them faced the same impossible choice between their family's financial survival and their pet's life. The building looked welcoming with its bright blue trim and cheerful signs, but Sarah felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. Emma helped carry Max's favorite blanket while Jake held onto his stuffed duck. The family walked slowly toward the clinic entrance, each step feeling momentous. Max managed to walk a few steps on his own before Tom had to carry him, a clear indication of how much his condition had deteriorated. Inside the waiting room, the smell of antiseptic mixed with the sounds of other animals and their families. Sarah approached the reception desk with trembling hands, ready to face whatever came next. The receptionist recognized them from their previous visits and offered a sympathetic smile. "Dr. Martinez will see you shortly," she said gently. "He's finishing up with another patient." As they settled into the waiting area, Emma whispered to Max about all the fun things they would do together once he felt better. Her innocent optimism broke Sarah's heart, knowing that their family's financial reality might make those dreams impossible to fulfill. Dr. Martinez appeared in the waiting room doorway, his kind eyes immediately focusing on Max lying listlessly in Tom's arms. The veterinarian was in his mid-50s with graying temples and gentle hands that had comforted countless animals and their families over his 20-year career. He had seen the Johnsons grow from newlyweds bringing in their young puppy to the loving family they had become. "Hello, Johnson family," Dr. Martinez said warmly, though his expression grew serious as he observed Max's condition. "Let's get this handsome boy into an examination room right away." The family followed him down a hallway lined with photos of happy pets and their owners. Emma clutched her father's shirt while Jake stayed close to his mother, both children sensing the gravity of the situation, despite their parents' attempts to remain calm. The examination room was small but clean, with a padded table in the center and medical equipment neatly arranged on counters. Tom gently placed Max on the examination table, and the dog barely lifted his head in response. Dr. Martinez immediately began his assessment, his experienced hands checking Max's vital signs while speaking softly to the anxious family. "How long has Max been showing these symptoms?" Dr. Martinez asked, his stethoscope moving across Max's chest as he listened intently to the dog's heart and lungs. Sarah explained the timeline, her voice cracking as she described how their vibrant, playful dog had gradually become the weak, struggling animal before them. Tom added details about Max's loss of appetite and increasing lethargy, while the children watched with wide, worried eyes. Dr. Martinez's examination was thorough but gentle. He checked Max's gums, felt his abdomen, and looked into his eyes with a small flashlight. Max offered no resistance, which concerned the veterinarian even more. A healthy golden retriever would typically show some anxiety or curiosity during an examination, but Max seemed too weak to care. "I can hear a significant heart murmur," Dr. Martinez said carefully, choosing his words to be honest but not alarming to the children. "His breathing is labored and his color isn't good. We need to run some tests to determine exactly what we're dealing with." Sarah and Tom exchanged a look filled with dread. They both knew that tests meant expenses they couldn't afford. Sarah took a deep breath and decided to address the elephant in the room directly. "Dr. Martinez, I need to be completely honest with you," Sarah began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tom's work hours have been cut and we're struggling financially. We love Max more than words can express, but we don't have the money for expensive treatments right now." The room fell silent except for Max's labored breathing. Emma looked confused, not fully understanding what her mother meant, while Jake seemed to sense that something was very wrong. Dr. Martinez continued his examination, his face thoughtful as he processed both Max's condition and the family situation. "Let me explain what I think might be happening," Dr. Martinez said, pulling up a chair to sit at eye level with the family. "Based on my examination, Max appears to have developed heart disease, possibly dilated cardiomyopathy, which is not uncommon in larger dogs his age. The good news is that this condition can often be managed with proper treatment." Tom felt a flicker of hope but tempered it with reality. What kind of treatment are we talking about? What would it cost? Dr. Martinez was quiet for a moment, clearly considering his words carefully. Ideally, we would start with chest x-rays, blood work, and possibly an echocardiogram to confirm the diagnosis. The tests alone would run about $400. If my suspicions are correct, Max would need daily heart medications that cost about $60 per month plus regular monitoring visits. Sarah felt her heart sink. $400 might as well have been $4,000, given their current financial state. She watched Emma gently stroking Max's head and felt tears threatening to spill over. Is there any chance Max could recover without treatment? Tom asked, though he already suspected the answer. Dr. Martinez shook his head sadly. Without proper treatment, Max's condition will continue to deteriorate. He's likely experiencing fluid buildup around his heart and lungs, which is why breathing is so difficult for him. Without intervention, he probably has only a few weeks left. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she finally understood the seriousness of the situation. But we can't let Max die, she said, her voice breaking. He's part of our family. Jake moved closer to his sister, putting his small arm around her shoulders. Even at 6 years old, he could feel the weight of his family's crisis. Dr. Martinez observed the family's obvious love for their pet and their genuine distress over their financial limitations. In his 2 decades of practice, he had encountered this heartbreaking scenario many times. Families forced to choose between their financial survival and their beloved pet's life, often leading to the devastating decision to euthanize animals that could have been saved. Let me ask you something, Dr. Martinez said, his tone shifting slightly. If money weren't an issue, what would you want to do for Max? We'd do anything, Sarah replied immediately. He's been with us for 8 years. He's watched our children grow up. He's been there through everything, good times and bad. We'd do whatever it takes to save him. Tom nodded in agreement. Max isn't just our pet. He's family. If there were any way to help him, we'd find it. Dr. Martinez stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot where other pet owners were arriving with their animals. Some came for routine visits. Others faced emergencies like the Johnsons. He had built his practice on the belief that every animal deserved quality care, regardless of their owner's financial status. I need to step out for a moment to check on something, Dr. Martinez said. Please stay with Max and talk among yourselves about what you'd like to do. After the veterinarian left, the family huddled around Max on the examination table. Tom lifted Emma so she could be closer to the dog, and Jake stood on his tiptoes to reach Max's head. They spoke in quiet voices about their favorite memories with Max, from the day they brought him home as a puppy to his silly habit of stealing socks from the laundry basket. Remember when Max got into the Christmas presents last year? Emma said with a small smile through her tears. He unwrapped every single one but didn't break anything. And he always knows when I'm sad, Jake added. He puts his head on my lap and stays with me until I feel better. Sarah and Tom listened to their children's memories, each story reinforcing how deeply Max was woven into their family's life. They had rescued Max from a local shelter as a young puppy, and he had grown up alongside their children, serving as their protector, playmate, and constant companion. When Dr. Martinez returned to the examination room, he carried a folder and wore an expression that was both serious and somehow hopeful. He pulled his chair closer to the family and opened the folder, revealing several documents and what appeared to be a photograph. Before we discuss Max's treatment options, I'd like to share something with you, Dr. Martinez began, his voice taking on a more personal tone. 15 years ago, I was in a situation very similar to yours. The family looked at him with surprise. Sarah had always seen Dr. Martinez as successful and established, someone who surely never struggled with financial difficulties. My daughter was 12 years old, and our family dog, a beagle named Charlie, developed kidney disease, Dr. Martinez continued, showing them the photograph of a smiling girl with a brown and white beagle. My wife had just been diagnosed with cancer, and between her treatment costs and my student loans from veterinary school, we were drowning in debt. Emma and Jake listened intently, drawn into the story. Tom and Sarah found themselves leaning forward, surprised by the veterinarian's openness about his personal struggles. The treatment Charlie needed would have cost more than our monthly mortgage payment, Dr. Martinez said, his voice growing softer with the memory. I was a veterinarian, but I couldn't afford to save my own daughter's best friend. The irony was crushing. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes, recognizing the impossible position Dr. Martinez had faced. "What did you do?" "I took Charlie to a colleague, Dr. Thompson, who ran a larger practice across town," Dr. Martinez explained. I swallowed my pride and explained our situation, expecting him to politely decline to help. Instead, he did something that changed my entire perspective on veterinary medicine. The room was completely quiet except for Max's labored breathing. As everyone waited to hear what happened next, Dr. Thompson told me that he had been in practice for 30 years, and he had learned that sometimes healing goes beyond medicine. Dr. Martinez continued. He treated Charlie at no cost, not because he was wealthy, but because he believed that love and family bonds were more important than financial transactions. Jake tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Did the dog get better?" Dr. Martinez smiled warmly at the little boy. "Charlie lived for 5 more healthy years. He was there for my daughter through her mother's cancer treatment, through her teenage years, and even went with her to college for her first semester." Tom cleared his throat, not sure where this story was leading, but feeling a strange mixture of hope and apprehension. Dr. Thompson made me promise that when I was established in my own practice, I would pay his kindness forward, Dr. Martinez said, closing the folder. He told me that the best investment he could make was in the bond between families and their pets, because that love creates ripple effects that last for generations. Sarah wiped away a tear, understanding now why Dr. Martinez had shared this story. "You've been helping other families like us." "For the past 10 years, I've maintained what I call the Charlie Fund," Dr. Martinez explained. "It's named after my daughter's beagle. Local businesses, grateful pet owners, and even other veterinarians contribute to it. The fund helps families who find themselves in situations exactly like yours." Emma's eyes lit up with hope. "Does that mean you can help Max?" Dr. Martinez reached over and gently stroked Max's head. "It means that we're going to run those tests and start Max on the treatment he needs. The Charlie Fund will cover the initial costs, and we'll work out a payment plan for his ongoing medications that fits your family's budget." Tom felt overwhelmed, struggling to process this unexpected turn of events. "We can't accept charity," he said, his pride warring with his desperation to save Max. "It's not charity," Dr. Martinez replied firmly. "It's community. It's neighbors helping neighbors. It's recognizing that the love between a family and their pet has value that can't be measured in dollars." Sarah looked at her husband, seeing the internal battle playing out on his face. She understood his reluctance to accept help, but she also saw their children's hopeful expressions and Max's deteriorating condition. "There is one condition," Dr. Martinez added with a slight smile. "Someday when your family is back on its feet financially, I'd like you to contribute to the Charlie Fund to help another family facing the same situation." This framing made Tom feel better about accepting help. It wasn't charity. It was participating in a cycle of kindness that he could eventually complete by helping others. "We'd be honored to pay it forward," Sarah said, speaking for the family. "When we're able, we absolutely will." Dr. Martinez stood up and began preparing for the tests Max would need. "Let's get started then. We're going to take some x-rays and run blood work to confirm the diagnosis. Based on what I observed during the examination, I'm confident that we can help Max feel much better very quickly." As if sensing the shift in energy in the room, Max lifted his head slightly and looked around at his family. Emma giggled through her tears when Max's tail managed a weak wag. "He knows we're going to help him," Jake declared with the certainty that only children possess. Dr. Martinez called in his veterinary technician, Maria, a young woman with gentle hands and a warm smile. She had been working with Dr. Martinez for 3 years and was well aware of the Charlie Fund and its mission. "Maria, we're going to run a full cardiac workup on Max," Dr. Martinez instructed. "This family is part of our Charlie Fund program." Maria nodded understandingly and began gathering the equipment they would need. She had assisted with many Charlie Fund cases and had seen firsthand how the program transformed both pets' lives and their families' faith in humanity. "The tests will take about an hour," Dr. Martinez explained to the family. "You're welcome to wait here, or there's a small park across the street where the children can play while we work." Emma didn't want to leave Max's side, but Jake was getting restless after sitting still for so long. Tom suggested they walk to the park, promising Emma they would return before the tests were complete. As the family prepared to step outside, Sarah turned back to Dr. Martinez. "Why are you doing this for us? You barely know our family." Dr. Martinez paused in his preparations and looked at her thoughtfully. "Because Charlie taught me that sometimes the most important medicine we can provide has nothing to do with pills or procedures. Sometimes healing happens when people realize they're not alone in their struggles." The small park across from the veterinary clinic had a playground with swings and a slide, but Emma sat quietly on a bench while Jake half-heartedly climbed the play structure. The afternoon sun was warm, but Sarah pulled her sweater tighter around herself, nervous energy making her feel cold despite the pleasant weather. Tom paced back and forth, checking his watch every few minutes. "It's been 45 minutes, he said, though Sarah could tell he was talking more to himself than to her. "That's almost an hour." "Dr. Martinez said it would take about an hour," Sarah reminded him gently. "We should probably head back soon." Emma jumped up from the bench.
"Can we go back now?"
"I want to see Max." The family walked slowly back to the clinic, each lost in their own thoughts and hopes. Emma skipped ahead, her natural optimism beginning to return now that Max was getting help. Jake held his father's hand, still processing the dramatic changes of the afternoon. When they entered the clinic, Maria greeted them with a smile. "Perfect timing," she said. "Dr. Martinez just finished reviewing Max's test results. He'd like to speak with you." They found Max back in the examination room, looking slightly more alert than when they had left. Dr. Martinez sat at a computer, studying what appeared to be X-ray images on the screen. "Good news," Dr. Martinez announced as the family settled around Max. "The tests confirmed my initial diagnosis, but they also showed that we caught this condition at a manageable stage." He pointed to the X-ray images on his computer screen. "This is Max's chest X-ray. You can see here that his heart is enlarged and there's some fluid accumulation in his lungs, which explains his breathing difficulties. However, the damage isn't as extensive as it could have been." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. "So he's going to be okay?" "With proper treatment, Max should return to being a happy, active dog," Dr. Martinez confirmed. "The blood work shows that his other organs are functioning well, which means his body should respond nicely to heart medications." Tom studied the X-ray images, amazed that these black and white pictures could reveal so much about Max's condition. "What exactly will the treatment involve?" Dr. Martinez turned in his chair to face the family directly. "Max will need 2 daily medications. One is called an ACE inhibitor, which will help his heart pump more efficiently and reduce the fluid buildup. The other is a diuretic that will help eliminate excess fluid from his system." Emma raised her hand like she was in school. "Will the medicine make Max feel better?" "The medicine should make Max feel much better very quickly," Dr. Martinez answered with a smile. "Many dogs start showing improvement within just a few days of beginning treatment. Max should have more energy, easier breathing, and his appetite should return." Jake clapped his hands together excitedly. "So Max can play fetch again?" "Eventually, yes," Dr. Martinez said. "We'll need to monitor his activity level initially, but as his heart function improves, he should be able to enjoy many of his favorite activities again." Dr. Martinez opened a cabinet and retrieved 2 bottles of pills. "I'm going to start Max on his medications today. Maria will show you how to give him the pills, and we'll schedule a follow-up appointment for next week to see how he's responding." Sarah watched as Maria demonstrated the proper technique for giving Max his pills, hiding them in treats to make the process easier. Max actually perked up at the sight of the treats, managing to wag his tail with more enthusiasm than he had shown in weeks. "The improvement should be gradual but noticeable," Dr. Martinez explained, as he wrote detailed instructions for Max's care. "Day by day, you should see Max becoming more like his old self. If you notice any concerning changes or if he seems to be getting worse instead of better, call us immediately." Tom took the instruction sheet and studied it carefully. The medication schedule wasn't complicated, but he wanted to make sure they followed it precisely.
"How long will Max need to take these medications?"
"Most likely for the rest of his life," Dr. Martinez answered honestly. "But that's very manageable. Many dogs with heart conditions live full, happy lives with daily medication. Max is only 8 years old, so he could have many good years ahead of him." The financial coordinator, Mrs. Peterson, knocked gently on the examination room door. She was an older woman with kind eyes who had worked with Dr. Martinez for over a decade and was intimately familiar with the Charlie Fund program. "I have the paperwork ready for the Johnson family," she said, entering with a folder. I've processed everything through the Charlie Fund, and I have a payment plan outlined for the ongoing medications. Mrs. Peterson sat down with Tom and Sarah to explain the financial arrangements. The Charlie Fund had covered the entire cost of the day's examination, tests, and initial medications. For the ongoing monthly medication costs, she had developed a payment plan of $20 per month, less than half the usual cost. The Charlie Fund receives donations specifically to help subsidize ongoing treatments, Mrs. Peterson explained. We believe that no family should have to choose between their financial stability and their pet's health. Sarah felt tears of gratitude in her eyes. We don't know how to thank you. This has been the worst few weeks of our lives, thinking we might lose Max because we couldn't afford to help him. The best thanks you can give is to enjoy many more years with Max, Dr. Martinez said. And remember, when your family is in a position to help others, we'd love to have you contribute to the Charlie Fund. Emma had been listening to the adult conversation while never taking her hand off Max. Dr. Martinez, how many other dogs have you helped with the Charlie Fund? Over the past 10 years, we've helped more than 200 families, Dr. Martinez replied. Dogs, cats, rabbits, birds, and even a few reptiles. The Charlie Fund doesn't discriminate based on species. Jake's eyes grew wide. 200! That's more animals than at the zoo. The room filled with laughter, the first genuine laughter the Johnson family had shared in weeks. Even Max seemed to respond to the lighter mood, lifting his head and looking around at his family with brighter eyes. Dr. Martinez handed Tom a business card with emergency contact information. Don't hesitate to call if you have any concerns. Night or day, if you're worried about Max, we want to hear from you. As they prepared to leave, Maria brought Max a special treat and a new toy donated by a local pet store that regularly contributed to the Charlie Fund. This is for being such a good patient today, she said, offering Max a small squeaky bone. Max took the toy gently in his mouth and actually squeaked it once, causing Emma and Jake to cheer with delight. It was the first time in weeks that Max had shown any interest in playing. Look at that, Dr. Martinez observed with satisfaction. He's already starting to feel better. The medications work quickly once we get them in his system. The family loaded into their car with renewed hope, Max sitting more upright in the back seat between the children. Sarah held the medication bottles and instruction sheets, reading through everything one more time to make sure she understood the treatment plan completely. 3 days after starting his heart medications, Max surprised the entire Johnson family by greeting them at the door when they returned from school and work. Emma dropped her backpack and squealed with delight as Max actually jumped up to put his paws on her shoulders, something he hadn't done in over a month. Mom, Dad, look at Max, Emma called excitedly. He's acting like himself again. Sarah rushed in from the kitchen to find Max wagging his tail enthusiastically, his eyes bright and alert. The transformation was remarkable. Just days earlier, he had barely been able to lift his head, and now he was moving around the house with energy they hadn't seen in weeks. Tom knelt down to examine Max more closely, hardly believing the dramatic improvement. His breathing looked so much easier, he observed, watching Max's chest rise and fall with a normal rhythm instead of the labored panting they had grown accustomed to. Jake ran to get Max's favorite tennis ball, eager to test whether their beloved dog was truly feeling better. Max, want to play fetch? He called, holding up the bright yellow ball. To everyone's amazement, Max's ears perked up immediately, and he moved toward Jake with something approaching his old enthusiasm. While he wasn't quite ready for vigorous play, he gently took the ball in his mouth and carried it a few steps before dropping it at Jake's feet. Sarah felt tears of joy streaming down her cheeks as she watched her children's reunion with their healthy dog. Dr. Martinez said we might see improvement quickly, but I never imagined it would be this dramatic. That evening, Max ate his entire dinner for the first time in weeks, even asking for seconds by sitting beside his empty bowl and looking hopefully at the family. Emma giggled as she gave him a few extra pieces of his kibble, thrilled to see his appetite returning. Remember how worried we were that he might not make it? Tom said to Sarah as they watched Max settle onto his favorite spot on the living room rug. And now look at him. Sarah nodded, still somewhat amazed by the rapid turnaround. It makes me think about how many other families might be going through what we just experienced. Dr. Martinez mentioned they've helped over 200 families. The next morning, brought even more encouraging signs of Max's recovery. He woke up early and went to the back door, indicating he wanted to go outside for his morning routine. While his movements were still somewhat cautious, he walked around the backyard with curiosity and even sniffed at his favorite digging spot near the fence. Emma discovered Max sitting by the closet where they kept his leash, clearly expressing interest in taking a walk. "Mom, I think Max wants to go for a walk," she announced. Sarah checked the instructions Dr. Martinez had provided about Max's activity level. Light exercise was encouraged as long as Max didn't seem to be overexerting himself. They decided to try a short walk around the block to see how Max would handle it. The walk was a celebration for the entire family. Max trotted along at a steady pace, stopping to sniff interesting spots and even greeting a neighbor's dog with a friendly tail wag. Emma and Jake took turns holding his leash, both amazed at how much stronger Max seemed with each passing day. "Look how happy he is," Jake observed, watching Max investigate a flower bed with the enthusiasm of a much younger dog. Tom took photos with his phone, wanting to document Max's recovery to share with Dr. Martinez at their follow-up appointment. In the pictures, Max looked alert and engaged, a stark contrast to the lethargic, struggling dog they had brought to the clinic just days earlier. When they returned home from the walk, Max drank some water and settled down for a nap, but it was the content sleep of a comfortable dog rather than the exhausted collapse they had been seeing. His breathing remained easy and regular, and his color looked much healthier. That afternoon, Sarah called the veterinary clinic to report on Max's progress. Dr. Martinez was delighted to hear about the improvement but cautioned them to continue monitoring Max carefully. "This is exactly the kind of response we hope to see," Dr. Martinez told Sarah over the phone. "Max's body is responding beautifully to the medications. However, it's important to remember that this is a chronic condition that will require ongoing management." Sarah assured him that they were committed to following the treatment plan exactly as prescribed. "We're so grateful for everything you've done for our family. Max is like a different dog." "I'm thrilled to hear it," Dr. Martinez replied. "Bring him in for his follow-up appointment on Friday, and we'll do some additional tests to see how his heart is responding to the treatment." By the end of the week, Max was participating in family activities again. He followed Emma and Jake around the house, watched television with the family in the evenings, and even showed interest in his old toys. While he still tired more easily than before his illness, his quality of life had improved dramatically. The Friday follow-up appointment brought more good news. Dr. Martinez listened to Max's heart and lungs with his stethoscope and smiled broadly. "The heart murmur is significantly quieter and his lungs sound clear. The medications are doing exactly what we hoped they would do." New X-rays showed that the fluid buildup in Max's lungs had resolved almost completely, and while his heart was still enlarged, it appeared to be functioning much more efficiently. Dr. Martinez showed the family the comparison between the original X-rays and the new ones, pointing out the dramatic improvements. "This is why I love veterinary medicine," Dr. Martinez said, looking at Max, who was standing alertly on the examination table. "When we can catch conditions like this early and provide proper treatment, the results can be truly remarkable." Emma hugged Max gently around his neck. "Thank you for getting better, Max. I was so scared we were going to lose you." Dr. Martinez discussed the long-term outlook for Max's condition. With continued medication and regular monitoring, Max could expect to live a normal lifespan and enjoy most of his favorite activities. The key would be consistency with his medications and watching for any signs that his condition might be changing. Mrs. Peterson met with Tom and Sarah to review the payment plan for Max's ongoing medications. She also provided them with information about the Charlie Fund and how they could contribute when they were financially able. Many of our Charlie Fund contributors are families who were once in situations similar to yours, Mrs. Peterson explained. They understand firsthand how important this program can be for families facing impossible choices. Tom looked at the information packet thoughtfully. "When my work hours pick up again, we definitely want to be part of helping other families. This experience has shown us how important it is for communities to support each other." As they prepared to leave the clinic, Dr. Martinez gave Max one final examination and pronounced him ready to gradually return to normal activities. "Start slowly and let Max set the pace," he advised. "If he seems tired, let him rest. If he wants to play, let him play in moderation. The drive home was filled with laughter and relief. Max sat upright in the back seat, looking out the windows with interest. Emma and Jake chattered excitedly about all the things they wanted to do with Max now that he was feeling better. "Can we teach him some new tricks?" Jake asked. "Maybe he could learn to roll over." "Let's just enjoy having our old Max back first," Sarah suggested. But she was smiling at Jake's enthusiasm. That evening, the Johnson family had their first normal dinner in weeks. Max lay in his usual spot near the table, occasionally looking up hopefully for dropped food. His presence felt like a blessing rather than something they had taken for granted. 6 months later, Max was thriving beyond anyone's expectations. His morning walks had gradually increased from short trips around the block to energetic mile-long adventures through the neighborhood park. Emma and Jake had resumed their weekend games of fetch in the backyard, though they were careful to give Max breaks when he seemed tired. Tom's construction company had secured several new contracts, and his hours had returned to full-time with overtime opportunities. Sarah had been promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store, bringing additional income and health benefits to the family. For the first time in over a year, the Johnsons felt financially stable. "I think it's time," Sarah said to Tom one evening as they watched Max playing gently with Jake in the living room. "We're ready to make our first contribution to the Charlie Fund." Tom nodded, pulling out the information packet Mrs. Peterson had given them months earlier. "I've been thinking about this for weeks. How much do you think we should start with?" They decided on $50 for their first contribution, with plans to increase the amount as their financial situation continued to improve. But Sarah had an additional idea that she had been developing for several weeks. "What if we could do more than just donate money?" Sarah suggested. "I've been thinking about ways we could help raise awareness about the Charlie Fund." Tom was intrigued. "What did you have in mind?" Sarah explained her idea, organizing a community fundraising event that would bring together local pet owners, businesses, and families to support the Charlie Fund. She envisioned a family-friendly event with activities for children, information booths about pet health, and opportunities for people to share their own stories. "We could call it Pause for a Cause," Sarah said excitedly. "It would be a way to thank Dr. Martinez and help other families at the same time." Emma overheard the conversation and immediately wanted to be involved. "Can Max be in the event? He could show other dogs how healthy he is now." The idea gained momentum quickly. Sarah reached out to Dr. Martinez to discuss the possibility, and he was enthusiastic about the community fundraising concept. He offered to provide educational materials about pet health and suggested involving other local veterinarians in the event. "This is exactly the kind of community engagement that could make a real difference," Dr. Martinez told Sarah during their planning meeting. "The Charlie Fund relies on community support, and having families like yours help spread the word is invaluable." Within weeks, Sarah had assembled a planning committee of volunteers, including several other families who had benefited from the Charlie Fund. She discovered that many pet owners in their community had faced similar financial struggles when their animals needed medical care. Maria, Dr. Martinez's veterinary technician, joined the planning committee and brought valuable insights about the kinds of educational activities that would be most beneficial. She suggested including basic pet first aid demonstrations and information about preventive care that could help pet owners avoid emergency situations. The planning process revealed the broader scope of need in their community. Tom learned that the local animal shelter regularly received animals whose families could no longer afford their medical care. The shelter's director, Mrs. Rodriguez, agreed to participate in the event and provide information about their low-cost spay and neuter programs. "It's heartbreaking how often financial constraints affect pet care decisions," Mrs. Rodriguez told the planning committee. "Events like this help create a support network for families who love their pets but face economic challenges." As word spread about the upcoming event, local businesses began offering support. The pet supply store donated prizes for a raffle, a local restaurant agreed to provide food, and several dog training services offered to demonstrate their techniques. Emma and Jake became enthusiastic junior volunteers, helping to design flyers and practicing their presentation about Max's recovery story. Emma, now 9 years old, had grown more confident and articulate as she prepared to share their family's experience with others. "I want people to know that Max almost died, but Dr. Martinez and the Charlie Fund saved him," Emma explained to her parents. Maybe other kids will learn that there's help available if their pets get sick. Jake, now 7, was excited about the pet costume contest that would be part of the event. He had designed an elaborate superhero costume for Max, complete with a cape that read Charlie Fund Hero. 3 weeks before the event, Sarah received a call that would add an unexpected dimension to their fundraiser. A local television news reporter had heard about the Paws for a Cause event and wanted to feature it in a story about community volunteerism. We're always looking for positive stories about neighbors helping neighbors, the reporter, Jennifer Martinez, explained. Your event seems like a perfect example of how communities can come together to support each other. The news coverage brought additional attention to the event and the Charlie Fund. Dr. Martinez was interviewed about the program's impact on local families, and several Charlie Fund recipients agreed to share their stories on camera. Tom found himself becoming more involved in the organizational aspects of the event than he had originally planned. His construction experience proved valuable in coordinating the setup of booths and activity areas, and he enjoyed working with other volunteers who shared their commitment to helping pets and families. This is bringing out the best in our community, Tom observed to Sarah as they finalized details for the event. People genuinely want to help, they just need to know how. The week before Pause for a Cause, Max had his regular checkup with Dr. Martinez. His heart condition remained stable, and his energy levels continued to be excellent. Dr. Martinez was amazed by Max's sustained improvement and used him as an example of how effective treatment could transform a dog's quality of life. Max looks like a poster dog for the Charlie Fund, Dr. Martinez commented as Max demonstrated his ability to sit, stay, and shake hands during the examination. His recovery has been textbook perfect. Sarah asked Dr. Martinez what he hoped the community event would accomplish beyond raising funds. Obviously, the money is important, but what other impact could this have? Dr. Martinez considered the question thoughtfully. I hope it will help people understand that pet ownership is a community responsibility in some ways. When we support each other during difficult times, we strengthen the bonds between pets and families, which benefits everyone. He explained that pets who receive proper medical care are more likely to remain with their original families, reducing the burden on animal shelters and rescue organizations. Additionally, healthy pets contribute to community well-being by providing companionship, security, and emotional support to their families. The Charlie Fund isn't just about treating sick animals, Dr. Martinez continued. It's about preserving the relationships between pets and people, which creates stronger, more compassionate communities. The night before the event, the Johnson family gathered around Max for a quiet moment of reflection. Emma brushed his golden fur while Jake practiced his speech about Max's recovery. Tom and Sarah reviewed their own presentation about the importance of community support during family crises. Are you nervous about tomorrow? Sarah asked Emma, who would be speaking to potentially large groups of people about their experience. Emma shook her head confidently. I'm excited. I want everyone to know how much Dr. Martinez and the Charlie Fund helped our family. Maybe our story will help other families feel less scared if their pets get sick. Max seemed to sense the anticipation in the air, staying close to the family and occasionally looking up at them with his bright, healthy eyes that reminded them daily of how close they had come to losing him. The morning of Pause for a Cause dawned bright and clear, with perfect weather for an outdoor community event. Sarah woke up early, her stomach fluttering with nervous excitement as she reviewed her mental checklist of last-minute preparations. Tom was already up, loading folding tables and supplies into their car while humming quietly to avoid waking the children. Max seemed to understand that something special was happening. He followed the family around the house with unusual alertness, his tail wagging constantly as he watched them gather materials for the event. When Emma attached his superhero cape, Max stood proudly, as if he knew he would be representing something important. Look at him, Jake said with delight, adjusting Max's cape so the Charlie Fund hero message was clearly visible. He looks like he's ready to save other dogs. The family arrived at the community park early to help with setup. Sarah was amazed to see how many volunteers had already gathered, transforming the empty field into a festival-like atmosphere with colorful booths, banners, and activity areas. Dr. Martinez arrived with Maria and Mrs. Peterson, bringing educational displays about pet health and information tables about the Charlie Fund. He seemed genuinely moved by the turnout of community Support. I never imagined when I started the Charlie Fund that it would grow into something like this, Dr. Martinez told Sarah as they watched volunteers setting up booths. This is beyond anything I ever dreamed of. Local businesses had contributed more than expected. The pet supply store had donated a massive raffle prize package. The local bank had provided an inflatable bounce house for children, and several restaurants had set up food booths with proceeds going to the Charlie Fund. As families began arriving for the event, Sarah noticed something wonderful happening. Pet owners were naturally gathering in small groups, sharing stories about their animals and discussing their experiences with veterinary care. The event was creating exactly the kind of community connection she had hoped for. Emma's presentation about Max's recovery was scheduled for 10 o'clock. As the time approached, a surprisingly large crowd gathered around the main stage area. Emma stood confidently beside Max, her prepared speech in hand but her delivery completely natural and heartfelt. "My name is Emma Johnson, and this is Max," she began, her voice clear and strong. "8 months ago, my family almost lost Max because we couldn't afford to take him to the veterinarian when he got sick." The crowd listened intently as Emma described watching Max become weaker and weaker, her family's heartbreak at facing an impossible choice, and their amazement at Dr. Martinez's kindness through the Charlie Fund. "Max went from barely being able to lift his head to playing fetch again in just a few days," Emma continued, gesturing to Max who was sitting alertly beside her. "But the best part wasn't just that Max got better. The best part was learning that there are people in our community who care about families like ours." When Emma finished her presentation, the applause was enthusiastic and sustained. Several people approached afterward to ask questions about the Charlie Fund and share their own stories of pet health challenges. Jake's moment in the spotlight came during the pet costume contest. Max, wearing his superhero cape, walked proudly around the judging area while Jake explained the significance of the costume. "Max is a real superhero because he shows other dogs that they can get better when they're sick," Jake announced to the judges. Max won the most meaningful costume category, and Jake beamed with pride as he accepted the ribbon. The prize included a year's supply of dog treats, which Jake immediately announced he would share with other dogs at the event. Throughout the day, Tom found himself in conversations with other fathers who had faced similar difficult decisions about pet care. One man shared that he had recently taken a second job to afford his cat's diabetes medication. Another talked about the stress of trying to help his elderly dog with arthritis when money was tight. "It helps to know other families understand these challenges," one father told Tom. "Sometimes you feel like you're the only one struggling with these kinds of decisions." The fundraising results exceeded everyone's expectations. By mid-afternoon, the raffle ticket sales, donation jar contributions, and booth proceeds had raised over $3,000 for the Charlie Fund. Dr. Martinez was visibly emotional as Mrs. Peterson updated him on the totals. "This single event has raised enough money to help 15 to 20 families," Dr. Martinez announced to the crowd during the afternoon wrap-up ceremony. "But more importantly, it has created awareness that will help many more pets and families in the future." The television news crew captured interviews with several families throughout the day, creating a feature story that would air during the evening news. Jennifer Martinez, the reporter, was particularly interested in the community aspect of the event. "What strikes me most," she told her viewers in the final segment, "is how this event demonstrates that caring for animals is really about caring for each other. The families here today understand that pets are family members, and community support during health crises strengthens everyone." As the event wound down and volunteers began cleaning up, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that desperate day when they first brought Max to Dr. Martinez. Her family had not only saved their beloved dog, but had discovered a community of people who shared their values about the importance of the human-animal bond. Emma was exhausted but exhilarated as she helped fold chairs and pack up supplies. "Mom, can we do this again next year?" she asked. "I think we should make this happen every year." Tom, who had initially been reluctant to accept help from the Charlie Fund, found himself completely converted to the philosophy of community support. "We're definitely doing this again," he confirmed, "and hopefully we can make it even bigger next year." The drive home was peaceful, with both children napping in the back seat next to Max, who was still wearing his superhero cape. Sarah and Tom reflected on the day's success and what it meant for their family's future involvement in community service. "You know what's amazing?" Sarah said as they pulled into their driveway. "6 months ago, we were the family that needed help. Today, we were the family providing help to others. That transformation feels just as meaningful as Max's recovery." Tom nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Dr. Martinez was right when he said the Charlie Fund creates ripple effects. We're living proof of that. That evening, as the family settled in for a quiet night at home, Max curled up in his favorite spot with his new ribbon still attached to his collar. The local news featured their story prominently, showing Emma's presentation and highlighting the community response to the Charlie Fund. Dr. Martinez called that night to thank the family personally for organizing the event. "You've taken the Charlie Fund to a completely new level," he told Sarah. "But more than that, you've helped create a model that other communities might be able to replicate." As Sarah tucked Emma and Jake into bed, both children were already planning improvements for next year's event. Emma wanted to invite veterinarians from neighboring towns to participate, while Jake thought they should include more activities for cats and other pets besides dogs. "I'm proud of our family," Emma said sleepily. "We helped Max, and now we're helping other families help their pets too." Before turning off the lights, Sarah sat for a moment on Emma's bed, thinking about the journey that had brought them to this point. What had started as one family's crisis had become a community celebration of compassion and mutual support. Max padded into Emma's room and settled on the floor beside her bed, his quiet presence a constant reminder of why their efforts mattered. His steady breathing and contented sighs provided a peaceful soundtrack to the end of a day that had transformed their understanding of community, generosity, and the power of neighbors helping neighbors. In the months that followed, other communities reached out to learn about replicating the Pause for a Cause model. The Johnson family found themselves consulting with organizers in different cities, sharing their experience and helping expand the network of support for families facing pet health crises. Max lived for many more healthy, happy years, never knowing that his recovery had sparked a movement that helped hundreds of other animals and their families. His legacy became not just his own survival, but the community of care that grew from one veterinarian's decision to see beyond financial transactions to the deeper values of healing and hope.